Hey there everyone, it's Mr. Lane, here to introduce you to the art from the Etruscans. Take good notes and let's begin. The Etruscans Key Ideas. They were the first superpower of the Western Mediterranean, developing the earliest true cities in Europe. However, none of their own histories or literature survives. They are from the Tuscany area of northern Italy before the Romans. They will be influenced by the archaic time period of the Greeks, but avoid nudity. What we know about the Etruscans is from their tombs, known as tumuli. They cared very much about equipping their dead with everything necessary for the afterlife. Death is focused on the celebration of life, as opposed to grieving and being sad. Their temples are built of mud brick and stone, unlike the Greeks. Their sculptures are created out of terracotta, stucco, and bronze. Here's a list of key terms that you will learn about throughout the lecture. These are all of the artworks we will review. Etruscans lived in between Rome and Florence. The Romans were not yet Rome as we know them today. They were actually ruled by Etruscan kings. It wasn't until 509 BCE that the Roman Republic was established, and that's the same time that the last Etruscan king ruled. Marcus Vitruvius Pollio, between 80 BCE to 15 BCE, was a Roman architect, civil military engineer, and a writer. He provided valuable information on Etruscan temple design and wrote a book titled The 10 Books on Architecture. Materials used on an Etruscan temple included wood, mud brick, and stucco. Stucco was a fine plaster used for coating wall surfaces or molding into architectural decorations. The function was the house as a house or shelter for gods. On the roofs were sculpture narratives. The layout included 3 cellas. Cella is the chamber at the center of an ancient temple. For example, in a classical temple, the room in which the cult statue used was held. It has one main entrance, and it was worshipped outside in nature. Model of a typical 6th century BCE Etruscan temple, as described by Vitruvius. Because of the material used, only the foundations of the temple survived. They resemble Greek temples, but had wood columns, tile-covered timber roof, and walls of sun-dried brick. The entrance is the only part that was made of stone. Unlike Greek temples, the columns are all in the front of the building, and it's not meant to be seen from all directions, like Greek temples. They had similar Doric order columns, but were also distinctly Tuscan. Tuscan columns are made of wood and unfluted, and have no base. Fluting, also known as reeding, is a series of regular concave grooves or convex ridges running vertically or spirally along a surface. Tenia, Uni, and Menera were the 3 chief gods of the Etruscans. Etruscan temples had 3 cellas, each reserved for those gods. Etruscan temples also had deeper porches not made of stone. Greek versus Etruscan temples. Greek temples were typically made of stone or marble. They had a stylobate. Fluting was used on the columns, no base on the Doric columns, and the columns surround a structure. Stone cabled roof, one cella to house the deity. They had pedamental sculptures and housed statues of gods for worship. Sculptural mass, perfect harmony, and were unified. On the Etruscan temples, typically made of wood or mud brick, had a podium widely spread in the front to distinguish front and back, and created a porch. Roof statues on raking cornice that were narrative in nature. Had 3 cellas, Fortunia, Uni, and Minra. Shelters the gods, and columns are a Tuscan order. Apollo or Apollo from the roof of the temple described here in Italy, around 510 to 500 BCE. Painted terracotta, 5 feet 11 inches high. Apollo is the Etruscan deity for the Greco-Roman Apollo. Veii is a principal city of the Etruscans. This was discovered in 1916. The additive sculpture technique was used. Simply put, additive sculpture is a process of creating sculpture by adding material to create the work. What similarities do you see between the Etruscan and Greek archaic sculptures? Apollo has a more animated smile, and the proportions of his body are different. He is also clothed. Based around a Greek myth, the character Hercules and Apollo had an encounter. Hercules is sent out to capture a large deer with golden horns. Apollo wants the deer back and confronted Hercules for possession of the horns, which were sacred to the god Hercules' sister. Greek gods and Etruscan gods were similar but had slightly different names. Hercules, the Greek hero, was also known as Heracles, and Apollo is the Greco-Roman name for Apollo, which is the Etruscan deity. The Etruscan version is Apollo, and the Greco-Roman version is Apollo. Sarcophagus with reclining couple from Cerveteri, Italy, 520 BCE, painted terracotta. Sarcophagus is Greek for consumer of flesh. It's a coffin, usually of stone, as you see here. This is not made of stone, but this is a coffin. Terracotta is unglazed, typically brownish red earthenware, used chiefly as an ornamental building material and in modeling. This sculpture was found broken into around 400 pieces, and then it was reassembled. Women in Etruscan society had an independent spirit and relative freedom. For example, they could legally own property independent of their husbands. So they had a higher status than those women in Greece. This sarcophagus came from a tomb. We see a husband and wife reclining on a couch. It's actually 4 separate pieces that were fired in sections. Maybe it contains the ashes of the couple. And it has a contrast to Greek upscale dinners in which only men dined. But here we see women, which is uniquely Etruscan. They were possibly holding objects related to a banquet scene. Perhaps the woman was holding a perfume bottle that was part of a funerary ritual. We also see the archaic smile. Greek versus Etruscan tombs. Greek tombs had grave stelae and vases. They used cemeteries where they buried the dead and also had mausoleums. Etruscans, they had sarcophagi made from terracotta or stone. Inside the tombs, we have decoration with stucco and reliefs. Cremation was done in relation to the sarcophagi. Death was celebrated, not mourned. Necropolis, known as City of the Dead, resembled domestic life. It had beds, chairs, pottery, drinking cups. They also had multi-chamber tombs known as tumulus or tumuli. Tumuli, Latin for burial mound. In Etruscan architecture, tumuli cover one or more subterranean multi-chamber tombs cut out of the local limestone. Tumuli in the Banditaccia necropolis, Cerveteri, Italy, 7th to 2nd centuries BCE. The Etruscans believed that the funeral was cheerful. A meal was held, often organized by the women. They ate, they drank, they had music and played games. When the deceased was placed in the tomb, the dishes were placed in the burial chamber. These tumuli were typically constructed by wealthy Etruscan families. Many ancient civilizations did not permit families to bury their dead within the boundaries of cities. The Etruscan solution to the problem of disposing of the remains of their deceased outside the walls of the cities was to have a city of the dead, necropolis. This tumuli resembled Mycenaean tholos tombs, such as the treasury of Atreus, if you remember. It's arranged in an orderly manner along a network of streets spread over 200 yards. So this tomb truly constitutes a city of the dead. Interior of the Tomb of the Reliefs, Cerveteri, Italy, 3rd century BCE. We can see the three-headed dog, Cerberus, in the back of the tomb. He was the guardian of the gate to the underworld, a reference to the passage from this life to the next. The Tomb of the Reliefs takes its name from the painted stucco reliefs covering its walls and piers. The stools, mirrors, drinking cups, and other items are reminders of the houses of the living. The domestic world is displayed with a lot of detail. There are cooking utensils. There would have been a cat, several carvings of terracotta. Interior of the Tomb of the Leopards, Tarquinia, Italy, from 480 to 470 BCE. If you look at the figures, they have a sense of liveliness to them, a lot of energy. We see men and women. The men are of dark skin and the women are of light skin. They're gesturing with their hands. They're talking with their hands as well. This is the last image that we will look at, just so you can see a closer detail of the figures. Thanks for watching. Try to be a rainbow in someone's cloud. Maya Angelou.